Alicia, here, grab my hand. Come here.
Oh, okay.
Whoop. Okay, wow, we almost missed our train ride. Did you bring the dress and the apron?
What?
Did you bring your dress and your apron that you packed in the suitcase as we ran away from the shitstorm that is the world as of today?
I guess I did.
Perfect. We're going to go meet Madam Eggsworth in the next cabin. And if we don't get this job, our life on this train is going to be hell. Okay. So
gotcha.
Do you remember how to serve a Salisbury steak?
Yes. I studied that really hard.
It's all about in the wrist.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready? Should we practice our song? I'm running away from the world
Peas.
I knew.
Salisbury steak.
And now
Peas.
I'm heading into
Salisbury.
the next track of my life.
Peas
I
and Salisbury
hardly
steak.
know who I am, but a Harvey girl would know. I'm a Harvey girl, and
Peas
I
and
serve
Salisbury steak.
the world, and
Serves
the
them peas and
apocalypse
Salisbury
has come,
steak.
but I'll still be here to bring you all your meals.
Peas and
such
Salisbury steak.
as
Peas and Salisbury
and
steak.
Salisbury steak. My name is Elaine, and this is my friend. Peas and Salisbury steak. And we love to play around, and our favorite hobby is
Peas and Salisbury steak. Mr. Harvey, there are two kinds of people in this world. Are you a plate of peas, or are you Salisbury steak?
Answer us now, the Harvey girls must know. Choo choo goes the train, but which one would you chew? The choose of your choice is yours. Harvey girls, Harvey girls, Harvey
Peas and
girls, Harvey
Salisbury
girls, Harvey
steak.
girls.
Peas and Salisbury steak. Peas and steak.
My name is Harvey Girl.
We need to stop. We need to stop.
I think that was a good trial run of maybe like one we need to put back on the drawing board, but
Yeah.
I liked the aesthetic and I liked the inspiration we were able to pull from the movie we watched, Snowpiercer, and what we're talking about today, which you're probably like, what? Because this podcast is called Wonka Watch, and we are two people who did not care about Willy Wonka until we learned a prequel was in the making starring Timothée Chalamet. It was so wild that we created this podcast, and now we talk about everything in the Wonkaverse. So Snowpiercer is in this Wonkaverse because
there's a very elaborate fan theory that came out a few years ago that's pretty well known that connects the two films, specifically 1971 Wonka and Snowpiercer, together. I had seen it years before making this podcast, and we've gotten a few messages to check it out. So it's like, hey, we've got fucking time. Let's get into it.
We've got time.
We're Wonka
on
Scholars.
this train. We're on this train for forever.
For this episode, Elaine watched Snowpiercer. I've seen Snowpiercer, so I didn't watch it again. I saw it like 2 years ago. But I watched the video about the theories and did some research on it. So we're just going to kind of, I guess, converse and share together how we felt.
We're going to podcast about it.
Guys, did you know this is a podcast?
Wait, Felicia, do you want to start a podcast?
Oh my God.
I know we met No Megal, but this is just wild. Let's continue this.
Choo, 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 choo. Oh my God, Elaine, what's coming in on the tracks over there?
Oh my goodness, it looks like a pile of Wonka Scholars, and there's a giant scroll. Oh God, it hit me in the head. Here, read it, please. Ow.
Oh my God, Elaine, it's this week's Wonka Watch.
Wow.
So let's talk about this week's Wonka Watch. Wonka Watch is our segment where we talk about the latest and greatest in Wonka news. We have a crumb today because guess what? Another fucking person is for some reason in Wonka. How many people are in this cast? I feel like some of these can't be true at this point, or they're in it for a minute apiece because they're like 40 fucking people. I know there's a lot of people in movies. I know there are over 40 people in movies, but people that you would write articles about being in things.
Yeah.
It's absurd to me. So let's talk about the newest addition to the Wonka cast is Charlotte Ritchie. So I don't know where you would know Charlotte Ritchie from. I am familiar from her because she was a contestant on season 11 of my favorite show, Taskmaster.
Oh.
She kind of had this the whole running gag with her is that she acted like a children's TV show presenter the whole time and was just very positive about the whole thing. So she's a great fit. I'm very excited about it. She's most known, though, outside of Taskmaster for Ghosts, the BBC comedy Feel Good, which is on Netflix, and then Call the Midwife. The only way I found out about this, though, was from the article, Charlotte Ritchie to star in season 4 of Netflix's You. And I was like, how is this relevant to Wonka in my Wonka Digest? I scroll down, and at the bottom of the article, it says she wrapped filming on Wonka. So I'm like, okay, is she actually in Wonka? Or is this like some weird rumor? Because I haven't seen like her listed anywhere. Is she actually on IMDb? We haven't done an IMDb check in a while, to be fair.
We haven't.
Let's see. Anyone new?
How's Mourner, bro?
Has Alfredo Tavari?
Alfredo Tavari is...
Ooh, we're getting a few new things. Alfredo Tavari is still here. But now, there are more mourners. We also have Grant Crooks and Pierre Bergman.
Okay.
We have a few more character names on here. So there are 3 mourners, which is... Okay, this is a significant funeral. We have a man named Gianni Calcetti, who is a town folk dancer.
Oh, fuck yeah. A town folk dancer?
I am a little bit disappointed because I think there is something on here that may mess with one of our predictions. Because a man named Murray MacArthur is a ship's captain. And I predicted specifically that Simon Farnaby would be a ship captain. But I actually don't think it even made it on the prediction sheet, so it doesn't fucking matter anyway.
There you go.
We've got more. Renee Costa is uncredited and is a barber. All right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people that are just credited as dancers. We also have a police officer and a Neil Christie playing a posh gentleman.
Oh my goodness. Things are happening.
Oh, fuck. I think I found something else we're gonna have to watch.
What? No, what is it? What is it?
1983's Kale Oak Chocolate Fabricant. An animated version of Willy Wonka.
What the fuck? Where is that? What language is that? What is that in? What?
Oh my god.
What is that? What is that?
Okay, guys, full disclosure, we did just have to cut out like 20 minutes of the podcast, but we found some great new episode topics that will be coming your way. So, Snowpiercer. Elaine, do you want to tell the people about your experience watching the film that is Snowpiercer?
Yeah. So, I really went into this blind. I had no idea what it was about. Felicia gave me a quick overview of like post-apocalyptic world with trains. And I was like, I love trains. Very exciting. 2.5 hours with the version I had to find with little ads and stuff. And stressful. Good. Like, I get it. There's some parts I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, maybe they needed 3 movies probably to cover, I feel like, more. But I wouldn't have wanted to watch 3 of them. So it was wild. So the Wikipedia explanation is that it's a post-apocalyptic science fiction action film based on the French graphic climate fiction novel Le Transpersonnage by Jacques Loeb. Global warming, they try to stop global warming, the scientists of the world, and they oopsie accidentally make the world actually a giant fucking popsicle. So the last of humanity is able to hop on this train that loops on this track that goes around the entire world, and everyone lives on this train. Like, there are babies born on this train that don't experience the outdoors. And then you have basically a class structure throughout the train. So the closer you are to the front of the train, the more like rich and nice stuff you get. And if you're in the back of the train, you like don't have windows. You don't have like proper food. You get these weird black Jell-O bars for your nutrition. They very much look like your classic 18th century chimney sweep kind of vibe. So this one guy basically is like, fuck this. They've been planning a revolution for a while. And they're like, we're going to go to the fucking front and we're going to take back the goddamn train. And so the main guy who built this train and who owns it and everyone worships, basically, his name's Wilford. So there's a bunch of big W's as you get closer. And basically the long story short of it is they are able to slowly go through the trains. It gets creepier as you get closer to the front. Everyone's brainwashed, and then it ends with basically the train exploding, and there's like 2 people left and they're both kids. But you see a polar bear of hope on a mountain.
Yeah.
So that was my very nutshell version of it, and we'll get into details probably as we go along, but
probably the most important thing to mention, the only thing you left out that I think is worth mentioning, is when it gets to the end of the train, the guy leading the revolution, I think his name's Curtis.
Yes. Chris Evans as Curtis.
Goes up to the front of the train, and then the guy who's running the train is like, I planned it all along. I wanted you to rise up so that we could cull the population. It's like kind of fucked up.
Yeah, because there's basically limited resources, so they have to constantly make sure everything's fine. So they had to get rid of 74% of they call them the tail ends, the very back of the train. So they basically just mass shoot them.
Yeah.
And they're like, yep, we hit the 74%. And then, yeah, he's like, he really does say, my boy, it's yours.
And he offers him the train. He offers him his job, which is the main connection to Wonka.
Yeah.
So,
and there's also children in the ground, little children in the ground running the factory.
What were your takeaways? That was like, how did you see this connected to Wonka? Because you knew there was a theory about this related to Wonka. How did you see that? Where did you see that?
I saw it as, so there's a guy named Gilliam who is like the elder and the tail end, who is kind of the guide for Curtis, like helped raise him not raise him. Curtis was 17 when the train happened, and they've been on the train for 18 years, by the way. So like, it's been a fucking long time.
Curtis Gilliam's ate a baby. It's a whole plot point.
There was like cannibalism happening. Like apparently they just shoved everyone in the tail end for 2 months and didn't provide literally any resources for them. I was like, then what was the fucking point of saving that was a plot hole I didn't quite understand, because when you just leave those people off the train, anyway, whatever. Not my story. But Gilliam, basically, you learn at the end, had hypothetically been working with Mr. Wilford, so I kind of got Slugworth vibes there. Just kind of reversed.
There was very much that.
Each train cabin could be compared to going through the factory and facing different horrors, because the way that people try to stop the revolutionaries from moving forward was kind of like, okay. It wasn't cute, obviously. It was like fucked up. But there's like a room where you go in and it's a giant fucking aquarium. And then you're in this like weird druggy opium spa. Like there's a lot of different quirks like that.
Yeah.
Just the like creepy aspect and his very chill manner, and the fact that you don't see him until the very end, but he's this giant presence that kind of takes over.
Yes. Yeah.
I really thought about it. Yeah.
My takeaway on it, my initial thing is like, I totally see how they're connected. I think if someone said that they took inspiration from Wonka, it wouldn't surprise me. However, this theory specifically posits that this film is a sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay. Sequel.
And we're about to dive into that right now. So, first of all, I do want to mention the guy who made this movie, Snowpiercer, is Bong Joon-ho, who later directed Parasite, which is like just one of the best movies ever made. I don't think that's like an arguable thing. It's just a really, really good movie. I don't think he would have made a film based off of Willy Wonka, especially because he's a Korean director, and I don't think Willy Wonka has the same holds overseas.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong. Completely correct me. I would love to know if he has a following across the world. I think it's more UK people seem to be the most into it, but let me know.
Yeah.
Has over 12 million views, which is shocking. And is made by the YouTube channel Rhino Stew, which is made by the man Luke Palmer. It was published in 2018. And I really remember, I genuinely watched this around when it came out and it was first going viral. So it was kind of weird returning to it. But the guy who made the video's favorite movie is Willy Wonka. And he fully admits at the beginning, he's like, this theory is kind of fucking out there, but I've been watching Snowpiercer and was like, this feels familiar. And then he just developed this whole sequel theory that kind of had a psychic hold on him, like the podcast. So I respect that.
Okay, he's one of us in a way. That. You know, he's part of the family.
Yeah. This theory he presents it very compellingly, and the video is worth a watch. He like matches up scenes from the movies, and it's very well edited. However, when you read the facts out on a piece of paper, it's like, okay, that's cool. So let's start. So the basics of the argument are just the similarities. So both movies are about groups of people working through a fantastical building or train, and one by one a person is removed until only one person is at the end.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Which is true. The whole venture being a test because a wealthy industrialist needs to find a new successor. And he just said the more that he thought about it, the more he thought it was a sequel to Willy Wonka, with the guy at the end of the train specifically being a grown-up Charlie Bucket who took over. Which is interesting. So then you get the title card of the video, which just says Wonka Piercer, which I did really appreciate. That was my favorite part.
I love that.
So the next part of the video just talks about the broad commonalities between the two. So both plots are focused on themes of class structure, children, and food, which is pretty vague, but yeah.
Yeah.
Both stories thematically examine sacrifice, choice, and free will. Sort of. Yeah. I don't think they're wrong.
Yeah.
I think if you ask me what are the themes in Willy Wonka, I don't know what I would tell you.
Yeah,
like I don't know what they are.
It just depends. I feel like on the adaptation you watch. Like overall, it's kind of like
because that is accurate. Because this is specifically 1971, and I think that is fair for 1971 with the whole like everlasting Godstopper and all that kind of stuff, and fate and destiny, and you know. Some of the other adaptations do not have that as strongly. So
yeah, and I wanted to clarify because I think plot wise, if you haven't seen this movie, so the whole like people drop off in each cabin. There is like the close group of friends and that Curtis has as he's going through, and they start dying because they get shot, or he has to choose between getting this prime minister or saving his friend, and he chooses the prime minister, and so he loses that friend. So it really is like each stage he is losing another person, which I hadn't thought about. Okay. That I can like I can put my little toe on that.
Thematically, there is a lot. He was talking about how there are moments in the 1971 Wonka that play into fate and destiny, like Charlie just getting lucky enough to find the money in the sewer grate, which is interesting because that kind of stuff gets removed within the Broadway versions, where it's like more orchestrated by Wonka explicitly, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And then in the video, he edits like between the Candyman talking about how Wonka was born to be a Candyman and how people in Snowpiercer talk about destiny and like their fate and how they will end up. So then this is the hard evidence, which I will be honest is a very short section. There are 2 bullet points of hard evidence. He argues that Wonka specializes in 2 things: state-of-the-art food production and experimental modes of transportation, which isn't incorrect. So I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like if you told Wonka he specialized in experimental modes of transportation, he'd get pissed about it. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like if I'm thinking to like, if we're talking 1971, yeah. I mean, he created a shitty like car wash train, essentially.
The glass elevator,
you know,
is that.
And the glass elevator.
That is, but I also think that was more to supplement his food stuff. Like,
yeah, I see like he has the ability to invent other things. And I guess we don't really know if entrepreneur 1971 Wonka wanted to branch out. But if we looked at Johnny Wonka, I mean, he probably would have been like, fuck yeah, I have awesome fucking like transportation.
The only thing is, I don't remember what media it is, but when they're in the TV room, aren't they like, man, you could do great things with this and transport people from place to place with the TV Wonka vision or whatever? And he gets really fucking pissed about it. He's like, how dare you insinuate this is for chocolate?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know what? He'd probably be down for it if he was like, yeah, so I can like transfer chocolate faster than everyone in the fucking world. And what if you could live on a train where you only get to eat chocolate and stuff? Like you get to live here forever in the chocolate factory, essentially on wheels. Like I could see it in that aspect.
Yeah. So
I do want to clarify plot wise for people. So the food element is that if you're at the tail end, you get these gooey black bars that you learn later are basically mushed up bugs. Like they've been eating bugs for years. That is the only food they've had. They don't remember the taste of other foods. And then they go up because they've never seen the other parts of this train, by the way. It's not like loosey-goosey. Like they've only existed in this lower train. So they go up and they're seeing like plants for the first time, and they're eating sushi in some of these places. Like it's horrifying to see how okay and normal foods people are eating. So the food element is actually like a pretty
yeah, I don't think
so. I can see that, but
I don't think he's wrong. It's just like that's all the hard evidence. So,
yeah.
So the other thing is that it's all completely sealed off. The factory, his factory is all completely sealed off, meaning Wonka has the technology to make a self-sustaining food-producing factory, which the train also functions as that. Which, yes,
yeah.
So now he presents a hypothetical timeline. And I'll be honest, this is where he kind of loses me personally. And I did take notes. I was like, okay, we're done with the hard evidence. I thought there was going to be a little more, but you know what? That's okay. We'll keep moving.
Love it, love it, love it.
Keep going. So he says, what if Charlie decides to disown his family name and renames himself Wilfred Wonka and then brands everything with a W like Wonka did?
Okay.
And it's like, but why would he do that?
Yeah.
Why would he do that though? Like,
well, he's young enough to be morphed and shaped in the eyes of Wonka. So
he does care about his family a lot, though.
He does. That would have to be something almost drastic.
I mean, in most films he gave up his he was willing to give up the Wonka bar to stay with his family. Like,
Yeah.
So he says because of Charlie's experience with chemistry in the 1971 movie, he's able to foresee the devastating impacts of the gas the government releases to stop global warming in the movie. And he shows the scene from 1971 with the teacher saying it's foreshadowing, which it's not. Because Charlie just pours liquid into a tube and goes, was that supposed to happen? He doesn't know shit about chemistry.
No, he
doesn't know fucking shit. If you said he learned about chemistry from Wonka because it's a part of the candy making process, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that should be the bit of evidence, not the one horrible scene where he's just doing like a project that told him to do that.
I'm like, this was a goof because they wanted to explode things. I understand what you're saying, but this is not chemistry experience. Yeah. He explicitly says what's going on. He doesn't know what's happening. So he says that Charlie understands that the loss of human life will be necessary on the train and shows the scenes in the movies where he says 74% of people on the train have to die. Which there's no citation for that. It was just like, okay. And then he says that the scene with the math teacher who draws a % sign on the fucking chalkboard is foreshadowing for that. For how much percentages play a role in his life in the future?
No.
Which is like, no. And I want you to know, the section after this is the more out there stuff. This is the grounded stuff. So,
oh, boy.
This theory is a little bit... This is what I mean. The way he presents it, you're like, yeah. Maybe you're right. But then when I have to read it after the fact, I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, he saw a percentage sign on a chalkboard, which would become really impactful for the rest of his life.
Yeah. So he says Charlie goes insane because of surviving the near extinction of humanity and takes drastic measures while still holding on to Wonka's sense of whimsy and extravagance. But the shock and awe manipulation techniques he has comes from Wonka with the quote from Snowpiercer, "We need to maintain the right amount of anxiety and fear, chaos and horror in order to keep life going. If we don't have that, we need to invent it." Which that does sound like something Wonka could say in like a dark version.
And I can also see, I mean, like, Wonka goes into hiding for like, depending on your version of Wonka you're watching, like 10 years sometimes. So I could see if we're going with Charlie has really morphed into like mini Wonka, wanting to be like, let's hide.
Yeah. I agree
like
with the theory. If the director came out and said, this movie, parts of it was inspired by Wonka, it would not surprise me at all. I think the sequel part is the stretch for me.
Yeah.
So he says the note inside the egg that Curtis finds is a borrowed technique from the Golden Ticket.
Okay, so there's, again, explaining for people who haven't seen it, there's like this weird motif of secret messages being sent through these like bullet things throughout the thing. Like little messages, one word that'll kind of hint at what's to come in the next like section that Curtis will face. So there's this whole scene where it's like Happy New Year and they're passing out New Year boiled eggs. And so this is where it gets fucking shit gets bizarre. And he opens it up, and he gets this little message in the egg. So I guess hiding something in food, but like, Mardi Gras, King's Cake. We also hide babies in there,
Yeah. Also, the guy in Snowpiercer has a secret spy like Slugworth. And that was the most interesting thing to me. And then he says that the guy who played Slugworth actually looks a lot like Gilliam, which he is right. They do look really similar. So he's like, what if this is Slugworth all grown up? And he's still the old friend of Wilfred Wonka, aka Charlie Bucket. And that's why Charlie Bucket says he's an old friend. And I'm like, they may just be old friends. But, yeah, it's... I think thematically and like tonally, there's a lot of things. It feels like if somebody was like, I want to write a super fucked up version of Wonka, and they set out to go and write it, but it's not really. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do like the idea. I like, for some reason, was thinking sequel still with Wonka. Like, Wonka gives up the factory and now gets on this train. It's
that
like
makes more sense
ruse.
To me.
You know what I mean? I think that makes more sense than Charlie
changes his identity.
Dark. Yeah, and I think that's kind of a cool theory there, because it would make sense.
That makes more sense.
It would
to me.
seem nice that he's giving away this factory, but really he's like, distract them, take it over here. I'm going to take all these ideas. Because Wonka has access to everything, basically. The Wonka mania is terrifying. We've talked about the effect he has on politics across the globe.
And I don't mean this as a hate on the guy in the video. He's talking specifically about 1971, but if you were familiar with the root text, you would know he has access to aging technology that can make him age slower than everyone else. So the timeline isn't even a fucking problem. Like, it's not like it doesn't matter.
And we know he knows a lot about technology. It's so easy that he would be able to hear about things before they happen in terms of scientific things that are about to go on. So if he hears about, they're going to try to make it cooler from global warming, and oops, we might make a fucking winterscape that will kill people because it's so cold. I could totally see him being like, I'm making a fucking train. I'm going to bring these bitches on and we're just going to play a long game and see how long I can play the game, you know?
That's, yeah. I think that's the thing that bothers me, is just Charlie grew up and changed his name. I'm stuck on that for some reason. Because if you said Wonka changed his name to Wilfred to escape the thing because he wanted everyone to think he like died, I'd believe that. To be honest, like, I'd believe that.
Well, and like Wonka, Wilford, like, it's the same syllable too, you know? And the gate... The gate leading into the final car, which is the engine where Mr. Wilford lives, has the same dramatic W, and it looks like the gate into like one of the Wonka factories we've seen.
Yeah, like, I don't think this theory is complete BS. I think there's some validity. I mean, I don't think there's validity to it, but I think it's a really fun thought experiment.
Yeah,
but
I'm just thinking, like, again, we're talking not like, if we're talking it's Wonka moving forward and we're like putting in the pieces like that, like, I totally see new 2.0 Wonka being like, okay, this is my style though, so like, we're keeping that.
So this is the more out there stuff, which he says even he thinks is a bit of a stretch. Which is interesting. What did you think the rest of this was? He basically argues that most of the people that work for Wilford, aka Charlie, are the other kids from the factory. So that like silent assassin Franco the gunman is Mike TV. And the reason for this is that his first kill is shown on a TV screen. However, this is a silent gunman, and Mike TV's whole fucking thing is that he never shuts the hell up.
Yeah.
So it just feels a little bit out of character. The child catcher, which is the lady in like the coat with the bangs.
Yes.
Clearest details about her are her lack of impulse control, and he implies that this is Augustus Gloop's daughter because she's seen eating her own blood, and Augustus eats inanimate objects, so it could be that. But I would have said this is Violet because she also doesn't have impulse control, and they have the exact same haircut and like the same coat.
Yeah, actually that would make more sense. Because she has like a little yellow pea coat, and like it's the same cut as... And the haircut also kind of is the same.
He mentioned vaguely, he was like, I don't know, Violet doesn't really fit in this. Whoopsies. Maybe that one lady's pregnant. That's a big tummy. That's what happens with the blueberry. And I'm like, no. That's
okay. That's no.
You've gone too far. Fallen off the edge.
Come back,
he knew it didn't make sense, but still, I was like...
He was just like, I'm on a high, please, let's go.
The only one that I I'm like, is Minister Mason, which is Tilda Swinton's character. Tilda Swinton is in this, and she's great. But he's like, that's Veruca Salt. The garbage chute changed her, and then she became like fanatically obsessed with Charlie and Wonka. And the reasoning for this is that they both have fur coats and always enter the room first. Out of these, it makes the most sense. However, no. You know?
Yeah.
There's also, this one I actually think shouldn't have been in the more out there stuff. This is more interesting to me. So there's, in the movie, there's this exploding drug called Chronal, which people take, and it can also explode. But he cites the exploding gum for your enemies from the 1971 movie as a precursor to that. And I think that's fun, you know?
Yeah. Like,
comparatively, I think that's not bad.
And the drug and the gum, I guess I could also see that because it's a drug that's never explained, but the addictive qualities, that seems like I can see that parallel. Yeah.
Now we move on to the topic of the Oompa Loompas. So he's like, well, if this is a sequel to 1971, wouldn't there be Oompa Loompas everywhere? He says no, because they went extinct. The Oompa Loompas operate everything, and the engine on the train requires a very small person, Wilfred said. That piece of equipment went extinct recently. Which he's saying to mean that means the Oompa Loompa species has gone extinct. In my opinion, I think he's just using their new terminology for a broken part he can't replace. But, you know, okay. So then he has to have a small child to take the place of the Oompa Loompa. And that's the whole Oompa Loompa theory. It's also because in the books, they have to survive in a hot climate and it's very cold. But he didn't know that because he was only referencing 1971 and people in the comments were like, hey, there's more here. Which, okay.
Yeah.
Now we're on to the conclusion. He just says he's kind of been obsessed with it because he feels like it makes both movies more interesting and has made him appreciate the details in both. It has the same selfless sacrifice. Curtis, when he sacrifices his arm for some reason, and Charlie gives the gobstopper to Willy Wonka, which I wouldn't call that a selfless sacrifice. I don't know what I would describe that as, but those are not the words I would use to describe that scene.
Yeah, gobstopper versus arm.
It's very different. And both films end with a hug and the notion that children will create the future. And then he's like, I know this is stupid, but maybe it's true. And all it takes is a little imagination.
Cute.
And then asks people to tweet at Chris Evans about it.
I mean, you know what? I'll agree with him. I do think it made Snowpiercer more interesting for me, kind of clocking Wonka-isms throughout it. And it kind of provided a template, too, of like possible foreshadowing for me, which made it a little more stress. I was stressed the entire time I was watching this thing, by the way. Like, guys, they went into depth about like when they were trapped at the tail end, they had to eat each other. People were sacrificing their limbs to other people to eat, which is how Curtis giving up his arm to save this kid at the end is like poetic. I do think it's stupid that Snowpiercer ends with these two kids just facing a giant fucking mountain. Like, even if the snow is melting, because that's the whole thing. They have a theory that things are starting to melt and they could actually live out there again in the world. But they have no food. They have no one else. And also, if they're the last two humans on Earth, like, that's like, is that really? I don't know. It just, to me, it was like a,
is that really a win?
Yeah, it wasn't, the children didn't give me a hope. It was the polar bear in the mountains. Like, well, you're in the mountains. You're having so much fun.
Yeah.
You lit, I'm like, go polar bears. Like,
give it back to the polar bears.
Give it back to the polar bears. When these kids, they don't know what a fucking polar bear is. And they're probably like, oh, a cute fuzzy thing. And
they're going to get eaten.
They're going to get eaten and die in like 5 days. I also have, I can't imagine that no one else possibly didn't survive the rest of the train crashing, even if it fucked up a lot, and like there has to be other humans out there. But it's like these two kids in the wilderness, they've only eaten fucking bars. And also there's this weird thing where people are taking the Kroll, the drugs, but they're left in those like drawers that they have at the coroner's office when they need to open up a dead body, and they just pop up that fucker. Like, They just were casually in there and they had to wake them up. I'm like, were they like Walt Disney'd Frozen? That's what I thought was happening. We were like, it's time to bring back Sam or whatever his name is. And it's like, what? That makes no sense. So this movie, I just need to talk about this movie in general because I had to watch it. And I don't usually watch, like, I enjoy a good thriller sometimes, but I don't like really gruesome stuff or things that make me think. You don't like the thing where it's like close adjacent where like I highly doubt we would ever have to have an internal train, like to be able to make those tracks and not have like countries be like, what the fuck you're doing. It would never happen. But the idea of being trapped on this train and you like can't, I don't know. I'm not a fan. Anyway, it had a grip on me. So if anything, the Wonka made me feel a little better and less stressed about the whole thing. So yeah, you know what? I like that. Because now I just want to watch other movies and see like in my repertoire, are there actual like Wonka adjacent things where it would be kind of fun to see like, yeah, this could fit in the Wonkaverse. I mean, and I think, you know, we're the people who just did a Succession episode with Wonka. We did an escape room. We've had Timothée Chalamet go through the factory, you know, so it's like, fuck it, you know, anything. Is Wonka the ultimate text for plot?
Yeah.
Is Wonka the F chord of music? You know?
Screw the hero's journey. It's all about Wonka now.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm working on writing a book. What if I just template the theme and journey of Wonka and then...
Well, I mean, it's the Deadly Game plot. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. I fucking love that. Murder on the Orient Express and Then There Were None are two of my favorite books.
That makes sense.
And Then There Were None is my big favorite, which really
And Then There Were
fits
None,
who I
I read it in 3 hours straight and it freaked me the fuck out.
So good. Oh, if you haven't read it, guys, totally go read it. Go read a book. Go read a book. We support books on this podcast as much as we rag on the books in this series.
Book.
We support book and art.
Elaine's the Agatha Christie girl and I'm the Shirley Jackson girl, and I think that explains everything you need to know. Really, it really sums up the two of us really well.
So I love, just kind of as a conclusion, what I enjoy, this is kind of like a, oh my gosh, she's about to get like really philosophical. Oh my goodness. I just enjoy that people can enjoy art so much that they have this imagination to go out there and see it. And I have to say, I mean, we don't know, but like you mentioned, maybe part of this was inspired by Wonka, regardless of this whole sequel, whatever. And I love when art inspires art that's so drastically different from each other.
Yes,
you know, because this is like
so.
A post-apocalyptic, like, scary film versus like your children's film that is sometimes disturbing. And I just love when there's crossovers like that. And I think it's fun that we also get to do that on this podcast because we're wild bananas dipped in chocolate for that candy theme. I'm really tired, guys, and I ate a whole lot of chorizo before this. I've been in pain this entire time. Sitting with a stomach full of chorizo and talking and breathing. Gosh,
Were you
guys.
about to say butthole full of chorizo?
I got a pothole for a chorizo. I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Sirloin steak.
Peas and Salisbury steak. Not sirloin. Get out of here. You're fired. You're fired, kid. What are your final thoughts?
It's cool that it exists. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't have like major takeaways from this, to be honest. I think it was cool. I think if you are semi-interested in it, it is totally worth watching his video on it because he presents it very interestingly with like great editing and like is worth the watch. So definitely check it out. It's a really cool video.
And I definitely want to say, I think that you guys, if you have a conspiracy theory in general, please send it to us.
Oh my God. I would love to do a conspiracy theory.
We would love to do it. Oh, that'd be so good. Yeah, send it our way, guys. Because we're probably going to do one where we create our own. So if you send yours, we'll maybe read it. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
But speaking of creating things and thinking forward, do you have any prequel predictions based on
let's go back to our IMDb fucking madness.
Love it.
So there were folk dancers, there were mourners, there were ship captains, there was so much. There was Charlotte Ritchie. Okay, what can we do with the ship captain? There's gonna be a bird on the ship that has a fun little personality moment where like it's still And what I mean by that
too
is
specific. Have a fun personality and steal a scene at some point. Burn on the ship.
I'm saying
flies away. You don't get it.
I'm saying a fun personality moment in the sense of like it steals somebody's food and someone goes like, "Hey, watch it." I'm not saying that's what happens, but it's more than just a bird on a ledge of the ship. Like the bird does something. It takes action. It's a bit.
I like it. I'm gonna play off of that. I think that during a scene that is a little tense, like maybe they're trying to sneak somewhere and it's not fully tense, but it's like, oh, we have a darker filter for what's happening. I think a rat is going to scurry and someone will scream.
Nice.
But the rat,
great.
maybe the rat, and then I also think that there will be.
Will the rat have a fun personality?
No, I think at some point we're going to hear the triangle ding as a musical instrument in the composition. I'm not saying a strong presence. I'm going to say a minor presence.
So if there's a strong triangle presence, you're wrong.
Yes, I will be wrong. Okay. And if there's a strong triangle presence, TBH, like, no. Glockenspiel, go for fucking it. Bells, sure. Triangle, bitch, you're basic.
You gonna fuck a Glockenspiel?
I'll fuck a Glockenspiel. No, I mean, wait, no. Smash or pass.
Glockenspiel or triangle. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Wonka Watch. Email us. Email us at wonkarapture@gmail.com. You can also check us out on Instagram at Wonka Watch. I forgot it for a second. We're good. We're also on TikTok at Wonka Watch. And if you were like, wow, this episode was just so fucking good and so well put together and their minds were just so great this episode, you can support us at buymeacoffee.com/WonkaWatch.
Felicia and I confirmed so far.
Yes.
We'll be seeing each other in person in October, guys. So let's utilize it the best we can. We would love to get maybe the board game going. I don't know then, but just things. We're gonna have some.
There are things in the works.
Yes, things in the works, guys.
We need to have money to run the Wonka slot machines.
Basically, we're gonna put it that way. We're gonna be near a casino, which I know kind of shocking for this pair. But shocking for one half of this pair. But together, you and me in a casino, that's a weird vibe.
We are going to go down and we will use the Wonka slot machine and we will report. Do not worry. Okay.
Anyway.
How do I fucking end it? Okay. Well, with all that said and done, that was a fun theory, but oh god, I'm doing this awfully.
Snow pierce through the brain. Crash, crystal,
snow, peas, and Salisbury steak.
Our train is coming to an end, and I finally retire as a Harvey girl because now I am a woman. It's not that important.
It's not that important. Bye, everybody.
Bye.